This is a good question. So, Kentucky is kind of a big place, and it depends on what you're hunting.
This week on Kentucky Afield, we went live on social media to answer all of your fall hunting questions, and we're bringing you those answers right now. It's all next on Kentucky Afield.
Such a pretty fish.
Beautiful.
This pond is plumb loaded with frogs.
They're everywhere in here. Yeah, this is a good fish right here. Really good fish.
Come here, girl.
Yeah, boy. That's a big rabbit.
Nice job.
Yes! Yes! My first musket. Mercy Leo!
Yeah, look at it. It's a keeper.
Here it goes. Boom.
Wow, that happened fast.
Hello and welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm your host, Chad Miles. Tonight, you have tuned in for our annual fall hunting question and answer show. Joining me, I have a panel of experts to answer all of our questions. First up, we have John Hast, who is our elk and bear program coordinator. Also very experienced with deer.
Yep.
So you'll be answering all of our deer questions as well as the bear and elk questions.
Absolutely.
Next, we have Jacob Stewart, who is our private lands biologist. So any of you landowners who have any questions about how to manage their habitat on their own properties, you'll be here to answer that. And you're also very, very well versed with small game. So any small game question we'll have go to you, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
And next up is a very familiar face. We have Sergeant Rufus Cravens, who is our conservation officer from the 6th District. You will be explaining all the rules and regulations that people may have questions. And I know there's some have already got a couple questions. So Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's long sleeve and sweatshirt weather, so you know what that means. It's fall hunting season, and our seasons have been in for a little bit now. Our deer archery season's about a month old. You guys been in the woods yet?
Yep, killed a limit of doves opening day.
Dove season's already been here. It's still in. A lot of people think dove season, is a one weekend deal. Dove season goes in, comes in, goes out, and then comes back in all the way to January, right?
Yep.
So do you ever do late season dove hunting?
I just opportunistically.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
That's a good opportunity though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Well, how about you? You been out in the deer stand yet?
Yeah, I actually got a deer last night.
All right.
Yeah, me and my dad, so it was a fun night.
Oh, great. And Rufus, I was talking to you before the show. You said not yet, but you're looking forward to it.
Not yet. Hopefully pretty soon I'll be out. So.
All right, well, great. Well, hey, we have some questions coming in. If you'd like to submit a question, you can do that right here on Facebook. Just go on to KY Field and post your questions right there below the show. So first question we have is from Andy. He wants to know could Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife consider a 1-year ban on those individuals who have been selected for an elk tag?
Yeah, great question. So we actually do it a little bit better. So we've got a 3-year ban.
Okay.
So for anybody drawn, bull or a cow for the elk draw, sits out for 3 years before they can even apply again.
Okay, so will the system not even let you apply or just shoots it out if you do apply?
Correct. It basically locks you out of the elk quota hunt.
Okay, so if you get drawn for a bull or a cow, you're out for 3 years. You're not eligible to be drawn or even to put your name in for consideration.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. There you go. Brian from Instagram. What do private lands program biologists do? Well, there you go.
There we go. It's we give advice on how to manage your property for whatever wildlife or non-game species that you are looking to manage on your property to make sure we have good populations for viewing and hunting pleasure. So that's we got 17 biologists across the state of Kentucky. On our webpage, you can find a link to the biologist that covers your area. So you just go online and look up to my contacts, and you can find the person who covers your area to come out and give you free advice.
Yeah, you said something really interesting because you said whatever you want to see on your property. So it's not like you're not coming with the exact same plan to make every single piece of property that contacts you the greatest small game habitat ever or the greatest deer hunting property. You ask the landowners, what do you want to see on your property? What do you want to put this time, effort, and energy? What's your long-term goal? And you kind of use that to make your recommendations, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's their goal and objective for their property, not ours. We'll try to lead them to what the potential is for their property, as well as what's on the landscape around them. So yes, it's all about them and working into their schedule, because management is something that needs to be done based on your goals and objectives to make it worth your while.
Yeah, but good habitat's good habitat, but good habitat for grouse might be different than white-tailed deer versus turkeys. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
kind of find out
Yeah.
what they want to see. And
Yeah, and then we can write you a plan to cover a whole lot of different species at once. I mean,
Okay.
The idea is to put that habitat for 365 days of the year so you can support those critters.
I get lucky enough to get on a lot of pieces of property out there, and some of the best pieces of property I've been on, they'll start asking me about the private lands biologist, and I don't know all of you guys, but most of the really nice pieces of property that I go hunt on have had you guys out there write them a plan, and they're following the plans. So that kudos,
Oh,
it
yeah,
does
yeah.
work.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Next question here is from Eddie Richardson. Are electronic decoys legal for dove hunting, and is still shot required on Miller Welch WMA?
So electronic dove decoys like the Mojo and different brands, they are legal for dove hunting. And then Miller Welch WMA is, you can use lead shot. It is not restricted to steel only or non-toxic on that particular WMA.
Now, some of our WMAs obviously do have non-toxic shot. Where's the best place to locate that information?
Either in the dove guide, the hunting guide, or you can go online and check that out, and it'll list if that's a specification for that particular WMA.
Are there also usually signage up at the WMA parking lots that lets you know if it's required?
Generally there are, but I would, those can be, unfortunately, those can be taken down or knocked over or anything like that. So I would always check the guide or check online.
Yeah.
As well.
What's the number one thing when you go out to the dove field, when you find a person that's not compliant, what's usually the issue?
I would say the top three that we probably issue citations for, at least in the 6th district, are either they'll have hunting license and no migratory, or they'll have a migratory and no hunting license, or unplugged shotgun.
Yeah.
So that's usually the three biggest, the three most common that we run into.
Okay. All right.
And another thing on those on the dove fields is the hip survey. A lot of people are still, I won't say a lot, but it's common to run into people who are forgetting to do that hip survey. That they can go online under our our website, sign in under their profile, and take that hip survey, and then write that number down. Either screenshot it or write it down on their license so that they've got that number and are in compliance.
Next question is from Larry Wayne. Can you give an update on CWD in Western Kentucky, and is there still no baiting? This is a good question because there's a lot of things going on with CWD right now based on what happened a year ago. Tell us a little bit about where we're at with CWD and what the baiting ban looks like.
Yeah. So the good thing going into this fall is we kind of knew what to expect this fall. So last year we got the notification that CWD was closed in Tennessee like the first week of September. So none of that stuff was in the original printed hunting guide. So this year for 2022, all the rules and regs concerning CWD and the surveillance zone in West Kentucky are printed in the hunting guide and on the online version as well. So with that, most of the stuff is the same. So the baiting ban is still in effect, carcass transportation rules. We will still have some days of mandatory check. So what is different this year, we won't be doing mandatory check on the muzzleloader season, so early and late. And we will only be doing mandatory check on opening Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the middle Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and the Saturday and Sunday of the closing weekend.
Okay.
So just trying to increase efficiency. We know when our hunters, most of them are out there recreating on the weekends. We can get the sample that we need without having to drag that out through all 16 days of the season.
By doing that, you're probably going to be still sampling well, I'm sure you guys did the math, 90% of the harvest, I'm guessing?
Yeah, probably a little bit less, but it gets us the sample we need to continue to say that we don't have it down there, which is what we're after.
And to, for people who think about deer season when deer season's in or right before it and really haven't thought about it again, an update on CWD is we've done thousands and thousands of samples, right?
Yep.
And still 0 positives here in the state of Kentucky. Is that correct still?
Correct. We did about 4,700 in the 5 counties in West Kentucky, and then about 7,000 total across the state, which is kind of the threshold we need for the surveillance that we do. No detections whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Yep. Well, that's great to hear, and hopefully we can, every year we can keep it out. That's 1 year better. So
it is.
Hopefully, we're saying the same thing next year when we sit here and talk. Jake, let's talk about baiting.
Yep.
Baiting.
Yep.
I want to know about baiting. What is allowed and not allowed as it pertains to baiting for deer?
Yeah, for sure. So in the surveillance zone, no baiting. So that's going to be any kind of grain. That's going to be salt. It's not going to be food plots, and it's not going to be stuff within the curtilage of your home, close to the house, bird feeders, that kind of stuff. Outside of that, open to deer, corn, just about anything you want, as long as you're outside of that 5-county surveillance zone.
So in that 5-county zone, you don't want anything that pulls deer unnaturally. We're talking trophy rock, salt licks, corn, any of those type of things are not allowed in those counties, correct?
Correct, and that's just to limit, the potential for nose-to-nose contact of white-tailed deer. That's the number one way this disease spreads.
All right. Next question here is from Jake Mills. He wants to know, what's the best food plot for deer hunting in Kentucky? This is a good question. I'm sure there's a lot of eyeballs and ears poked up when they heard this. Tell me what you would plant. And I'm sure it's going to be a mixture, but tell me what you would plant if you wanted to get the best food plot for deer in the state of Kentucky.
I mean, as far as a deer attracting plot in the state of Kentucky, clover is a good all-around, long-lasting attractant. Then you have either a summer or a winter annual. So winter, you got your kale, your winter wheats, your crimson clovers, that kind of stuff. In the summer, you got your soybeans, your corn, your milo. And the best thing I can tell you is a food plot is a wonderful thing to put out there for attracting to hunt over. But you need to go further. It needs to be part of a bigger management plan. It needs to be part of the idea of here's a food plot, here's cover next to the food plot to make it more useful to the deer for a longer period of time. Very seldom do you see a food plot that's wide open that a deer will walk to, a trophy buck will walk to and eat in right off. But if you have cover, they feel comfortable coming to it, they'll come to it sooner while it's daylight, so you can actually take a good chance of harvesting a bigger deer. So a food plot is one part of a management plan. It needs to be only a part of a management plan now. Mm-hmm.
So clover and then
your annuals. Do some winter, some summer, and rotate them is the best thing.
What is one of the weirdest things that you have been out and you're like, what do you got there? And someone has planted something and they say the whitetails love it. Because I hear all kinds of things that people plant and go, you won't believe how the whitetail come to that.
I guess I ain't never heard anything really weird. I guess one that I always hear that is really good for deer that I ain't really seen them use much, chicory.
Okay.
People say, oh, chicory is a good thing to plant for deer. I've never really seen deer hit chicory that hard.
Yeah.
Now there may be somebody out there call me a liar, but I haven't really seen it.
I have a couple of friends that are contractors, and they say that the cheapest grass, which I know fescue is bad, but they're saying that contractors mix, when it first comes up, apparently it has some clover in it too, said you can't keep a deer out of it. So it's the weirdest thing.
But I would steer away from
you don't want
contractors mix.
fescue.
No, you
that
don't want
type
the
of stuff,
fescue, that kind of stuff in there. But the clovers though, all the clovers. If you want a good, long-lasting, easy to maintain plot, good clover plots, you can't beat them.
Interesting. All right, next question from Jeff Thompson. Wants to know, are black powder revolvers legal during the muzzleloader season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
What is the bore restrictions on black powder hunting for a handgun? Are there any particular rules, restrictions there?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll check the guide.
We'll check that out.
Yeah,
Hey, listen,
I'll check that out
if one of the questions are not fully answered, you can always reach us, not just during this call-in show, at 1-800-858-1549, and we will definitely get you an answer. But Rufus is going to check the hunting guides. The hunting guides are not only for hunters, they're for conservation
That's
officers
right,
as well.
exactly.
We're going to check
things
that.
change and different things, so sometimes you got to look it up.
Sometimes, and that's one of those questions that, revolver hunting with black powder revolver hunting is not super popular, so it's not a question that you probably get a whole lot. But
there is no caliber restriction on that for rifles, muzzleloading rifles or handguns, no caliber, any caliber.
Okay, there you go. Next question from Roger Blair. When does raccoon season start? Wants to know when he can get out there and do some trapping or raccoon hunting.
Hunting season comes in October 1st.
Okay.
So raccoon hunting season does.
Yep.
So October 1st through February 28th, it looks like, for hunting. November 14th through February 28th for trapping. That's what in my notes here. Yeah,
And then during the hunting season, it's nighttime hours only for that opening weekend of modern gun deer season.
Okay. Okay. So are you still seeing quite a few people doing some trapping?
A little bit, not as much. I've been on about 16 years now, and used to you check a lot of people trapping. Don't see as many now. See more people setting snares out for coyotes, but it's more of a nuisance.
Yeah.
They're doing it for as opposed to trapping to get the furs and the pelts to to sell them and that sort of thing.
What about raccoon hunting? Is that still pretty popular?
I'm sure it is in some parts in central Kentucky where I mainly work. Clark, Madison, that kind of area. There's still people that do it, but nothing like 10, 15 years ago when you could go out on a Friday night when it first cooled off or season first come in, and you run in 4 or 5 groups of hunters in one evening. And now sometimes you can work 3 or 4 hours in the evening to find one one set.
Tell you what, it's a lot of fun. If you ever work behind a good coon dog, it's a lot of fun. That's interesting because I don't get as many calls for people wanting to do that, and the shows that we have done have been a lot of fun and really popular. So I just was wondering how that's going. Damon Bishop said he's owned land in Kentucky, but he lives in Indiana. Can he hunt his property without a license? He pays taxes on the property, so he thought that he could hunt it.
No, he cannot. The way our laws are written, only residents of Kentucky who own land in Kentucky are licensed and permit exempt.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you live outside of Kentucky but own land in Kentucky, then you're required to have a non-resident hunting license, non-resident deer permit, whatever species you're hunting. It's the non-resident versions of those.
I get this question quite a bit. People that own houses in Kentucky or lake houses or whatever. I hear this quite often, and people always say, "Well, what about owning a fishing license? Because I'm a resident in Kentucky in the summer, but I'm not a resident in Kentucky." And I'm like, if you have a resident license in 2 different states at the same time, you probably got a problem.
Right. Yeah, you're in violation somewhere.
You're in violation
correct.
somewhere. So that's, if you got a hunting or fishing license, if you've got 2 residents at the same time, even if you're not doing both those activities,
right,
you probably violated one of those states, right?
Right. Yeah, our resident definition, it says in their permanent domicile.
Okay.
So
just wanted to clear that up a little bit, because it's one of those questions that I get quite a bit.
That's a good question.
Justin Colwell, how healthy is our elk herd?
Yeah,
What do you
they're
think
doing
about
great. They're doing great. So we are doing lots of work to, I guess the best way to say it, cover every conceivable, side of from elk health to reproductive rates to how our bulls are doing. We are getting ready to wrap up a very extensive calf mortality project that we've been working on. You might have seen a couple of Kentucky Afield episodes where we were catching them with a helicopter. That was part of that study. Getting ready to develop a new population model coming up this winter. The biggest thing that we're finding out is these elk have just gotten smart. For a good portion of my early career, I was a professional elk hunter. We were darting them. That's made it on the show as well. I mean, literally hunting these things day in and day out, and it even got hard for us.
Yeah.
So we know they're there, and they are just absolutely crawling up in the darkest hollow they can find. They know when hunting season starts, so it's going to take a little bit more boot leather to get them found nowadays than it would maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that, and the success rate of people that are being drawn is kind of showcasing that, is it not?
It is. It went down, and then we're kind of in this plateau period here the last 5 or 6 years where it's been right there still at upper 40%.
Yeah.
So a guy that I work with here, we just got back from a unit in Colorado that was 13% success rate.
13%.
So we're still well above most of the places you're going to get into out west.
Yeah. Then my next question is going to ask you, how's that compared out west? And there you go. You're kind of letting me know. I was involved with some of the elk restoration project even before my time here at the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and it wasn't really difficult to just get an elk back then. You had a piece of property where they were relocated close by, and there was something for them to eat. You could pretty much get in range, and those days takes a lot more time, scouting, prep work, a lot more time on foot now, doesn't it?
It does. I liken it. I've spent several seasons, several Septembers in Colorado on public land, and it is very much the Kentucky elk and the public land Colorado elk are one and the same now. The same behaviors. They obviously don't want to get shot
Yeah.
in the fall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
their full-time job is staying alive through the fall. So it's a little bit tougher quarry these days.
Yeah. All right, next question. Thomas Wattrell said, where are some good places to hunt and fish in Everett, Kentucky? Everett, Kentucky. Everett, Kentucky. I think
That's
I know where
Harlan
Everett, Kentucky
County.
is. Yeah, that
Oh,
is
no,
down
that-
in southeastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yep.
You got, I think, Martin's Fork Lake down there. The Cumberland River, if I'm not mistaken, runs through part of that.
Yep.
But
What about hunting? What do we know down there as far as hunting? Anybody know?
You got lots of public land down there. So Cranks Creek, Martins Fork WMA, Shalala Creek, Asher Hunting Access Areas right up, it's down the road from Everett's.
Okay.
Those are kind of big mountain properties, plenty of room to roam with good variety, everything from bear to whitetails.
Okay.
Small game, yeah.
As far as this isn't the fishing show, but that's very, very, very close to where our state record largemouth bass came from. I do believe. I believe that isn't that really close to where? Can't think of the name of that little lake out there that we used to put trout in, where the new state record's from is right there in Everett as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot of opportunities down that way. Gerald Bryant, how long is bear season in McCreary County? When does bear season come in? And I was going to ask him, but you're the bear biologist. Tell me, what are the dates for bear season?
So things are a little bit interesting this year with our regulation changes we made last September. The one thing, we've got a couple things that are in flux that we should have lined out here in a week or two, and we'll get that updated online. For the folks that are archery hunting and gun hunting, we've made no changes to those opening days. So October 22nd for archery, December 10th for gun season. If these regs do go through and we get them finalized, we'll actually get rid of the quota. So it'll be a set season length.
Okay.
So, if you're taking time off from work and you're an archery, crossbow, or gun hunter, you can still lock in, same Saturdays that it always opened on.
Tell me something that if you're bear hunting's like, it's kind of a fairly new opportunity here in the state of Kentucky. If it's something you have some interest in, what is something that a bear hunter would need to know in Kentucky? Are there any particular things that people are like, oh, I didn't realize you had, like a particular size or a particular caliber that they need to shoot, or scouting or baiting? Tell me a little bit about that. I know baiting's not allowed.
Yeah, baiting comes into it pretty often. I get that question a lot this time of year. And just generally, you can't bait for bears, but we know that there's areas out there. Your neighbor might have a deer feeder out, something like that. My general advice, and Rufus can jump in, is if it's not on your property, you don't have to know it's there. So you don't need to go surveying your neighbor's land. Like hunt your section there and don't hunt over bait.
Yeah.
The other thing is bait includes scent attractants. There's lots of products made like bear bombs. It'll be like an aerosol spray that is a scent. Any liquid or scent spray is also considered bait per our regs.
Okay. What about size of a bear? Is there a particular size that a bear needs to be harvested in Kentucky?
Yeah, so they need to be 75 pounds. And I will say that we have a few that are close every year, but normally they're not close if they're unfield dressed. So we require 75 pounds of bear, so bring all that bear if you feel like it's on the small side.
Yeah.
75 pounds, we pick that weight because young of the year are well below it, and yearling bears are usually about 100 pounds at that point, so they're well above it.
Gotcha. Okay.
We're not trying to get anybody tripped up, so we kind of put that in a place where there's not many 75-pound bears.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. So there are some things you need to kind of look at if you're gonna go bear hunting, because like I said, it's a new opportunity here, and I know a lot of people think bear hunting, that sounds pretty interesting. Beautiful mountains of eastern Kentucky. I'm gonna go down there and try to find a bear. What about what's legal rifle for rifle restrictions for bear?
Yeah. So right now it's the same as our elk reg. So it's 270.
Okay.
.270 bullet diameter.
Gotcha.
Is what's required. These regs that we've got coming down the pipe will back that down to 6.5 millimeter.
Okay.
So the 6.5 Creedmoors, that kind of stuff has gotten popular. They're more than adequate for a bear, and that will open those up.
Okay. All right. Next question is from Danny Stevens. When is youth deer season this year? Hey, it's right around the corner.
That's right.
Right around the corner.
That's right.
October 8th and 9th.
Okay, October 8th and 9th. So that is just a few weekends away, right?
It's not this coming weekend, but the following weekend.
Okay, October 8th and 9th. What does a youth deer hunter or a person taking out a youth deer hunter kind of need to know?
Okay. Well, so if they are under the age of 12, then they are licensed and permit exempt. They do not have to have a hunting license or a deer permit. Age 12 to 15, they would be required to have a youth deer permit, a youth hunting license, or they can buy the youth sportsman's license, which includes both of those. They would be required to wear the hunter orange. And then age 12 and older are required to have the hunter education certificate as well. They could be licensed exempt as well if they're hunting on their own property, regardless of that age. You know, if they are that 12 to 15, then you know, they would be licensed and permit exempt on that as well. The person that's taking them out, the adult, they do not have to have a hunting license or a deer permit. They would also have to wear hunter orange though as well. And then if they were to harvest a deer, that deer has to be telechecked, just like any other deer. And they would use the social security number of the youth that actually takes the deer. We get that question a lot out in the field. A youth kills a deer, and the parent might think that they're supposed to use their social security number instead of the youth's. So it's whoever took the deer is the one you would use the social
This is a question I get every single year during youth season. Someone will call me up and be like, "Hey, my grandson, they got their first deer today," and I'm like, "Well, that's great." They're like, "Well, they're not required to have tags, so we don't have to telecheck it, right?" And that. You know, it's a little bit confusing because if you don't have to have a tag, you think, okay, well, we're legal to hunt without having to be recognized by the agency or the Department of Fish and Wildlife. The harvest of that animal still needs to be telechecked. And when you call telecheck, what prompts are they going to go through?
It's going to ask for like the social security number to start with, and then it's going to ask if it was private land, public land, what type of weapon was used, if it was male or female, and then if it was a button buck, then it would be male, not visible. And then if it's if it's a buck, I believe it's going to ask the antler spread.
Yep.
I believe is what it asks on there.
And one of the very first questions off the bat asks you if you're a youth under the age of 12 and if you're checking this deer on a statewide license. If you're
Correct.
a youth under the age of 12, that's where you want to go there, right?
That is correct, yes. It would
Even
be
if you
under
don't have to
state-
have a license, that's where you're going. It's the same as using your statewide license, I guess,
Right,
at that
that
point
is
in time.
correct.
How many tags does a youth under the age of 12, he doesn't have to buy a license, they're entitled to one antlered animal? And anything else? Are they allowed to a second deer?
Yes, so since they are licensed and permit exempt, it would all depend on what zone they're hunting in.
Okay.
But for instance, if the youth was hunting in a zone 1, then they could take one antlered deer and an unlimited number of antlerless deer.
Okay.
And those would all be included basically because they are licensed exempt.
Okay, so if a youth wanted to take two antlerless deer opening morning in a zone 1, they're allowed to do that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And then if they buy the youth hunting license and youth deer permit, or they buy the youth sportsman, that includes those, that permit is good for 4 deer.
Okay.
A total of 4 deer. Again, they need to check the guide for what zone they're hunting in, and then the bag limits for that zone. You know, if they're in a zone 4, then they're obviously a lot more strict on their bag limit than if they're hunting in a zone 1.
So youth deer season it's a great weekend. Usually that's when the deer movement is really kind of starting to pick up. You start seeing a little bit of deer moving and doing some rubbing and starting to potentially do scrapes, and it's a great time of year to get a youth out. But a youth in those age groups, they also can hunt the regular hunting season under the same rules and regulations, correct?
Exactly.
So we've had some pretty mild years. November is not a bad time to take a youth out either. So it's a great opportunity. And then later in the year, we have another youth season, right, in December. Mm-hmm. What's the dates on that? Do you know?
It's the Saturday and Sunday after Christmas. I believe this year it's December 31st and January 1st because that's on the weekend.
So depending on what the weather's like, if you got a youth that for whatever reason, schedule doesn't allow them to get out there, parents or grandparents or whoever takes them doesn't get them out there, there's another opportunity later on in the year, right
Sure.
at the new year.
Sure.
to get children out again. Now, I don't hear a lot of people using that season as much.
Yeah, I occasionally check a few, maybe a handful here and there, but not near as many as you do during the the actual youth weekend.
Yeah.
So, and something else to mention on that too, safety-wise. So that youth that's under the age of 15 hunting with that firearm, the adult that accompanies them, the adult can only accompany 2 hunters at once, and then that adult has to be in a position to take immediate control of that firearm. So they have to be with the youth at all times while they're actually.
And everyone, regardless if hunting or not hunting, needs to have hunter's orange and
That
vest and hat.
That is correct, yes. Unbroken orange, like the camouflage, orange camo doesn't work. A small discoloration like a logo or something like that is perfectly fine, but
All right, next question's from Mike Barber. He wants to know what can be done to help his rabbit population on his property. He said it seems like the foxes are killing all his rabbits. First off, what are you seeing about the rabbit population? Are you hearing much about rabbit populations here in the state of Kentucky?
This year I've seen a whole lot, and I've heard some pretty good results on rabbits as far as rabbit populations. As far as rabbit populations and foxes, I'll come back to cover. Protection for those for the rabbits, escape cover, that kind of stuff is key. You can also utilize trapping. We have a trapping season to enjoy and to partake in and trap some of the foxes. But the main thing is to provide cover for escape from the predators, being a hawk, fox, bobcat, coyote, anything is some kind of cover so they can get away.
It's amazing. I have seen a lot of rabbits this year. It seems like this is going to be a really, really, really good year for rabbits. It's amazing. Rabbits, you may see a couple of rabbits that are being taken by hawks or by foxes or coyotes, whatever it may be. Rabbits are really, they survive due to numbers. Yes. It's a breeding game, is it not? Because you look at the hunting guide that I was looking at that the other day, and it talks about an eastern cottontail. How many times an eastern cottontail may have offspring in a year, and how many offspring are in each of those litters? It's not uncommon for an adult female rabbit to have nearly 20 offspring a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's a numbers game. Some of those are going to be picked off and taken, and that's just unfortunately part of the game by hunters or by other means. But if you want to increase your chances of those offspring, cover, right?
Cover, yeah. I mean, the more you can ensure that offspring will survive, by covering and protecting them, the more you'll have to hunt.
Yeah, and if you went to a place last year and you didn't see that many rabbits, you might want to give it another try this year, because 1 or 2 females, that place might be loaded this year.
Could be. Yeah.
It happens fast. Dan, how many acres do you need to have to manage your habitat on your property?
More is always better, but depending on where your property sits, how it sits, and again, goes back to your objectives for your property, is where it goes. But, it's always good if you have a small piece of property. It's a wonderful opportunity to go knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, let's work together. Let's come up with a plan that we can maximize the benefits, because deer, 640 acre, say, home range, the more you can manage that, the better off everybody is. So you're not just hunting that one big buck you get on camera, you produce multiple big bucks on a group of properties. So, the size, the more you have, the better. But I do think, please give us a call. We can call, talk to you and see what your objectives are and see what we can do.
I mean, if someone calls you up with 15 acres of property, would Department of Fish and Wildlife send an individual out there to kind of help them out, or does they have a certain number where you go?
We do like to say, 20 acres or more, but at the same time, call our biologists. They may have some time. They may pull you up, pull a map up, get your address, give you some advice and see, because, again, there may be some good opportunity there depending on what you're trying to manage for.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So give your biologist a call, and you can reach your biologist on our website.
Yep.
If you go on there and pull up your county, you can find your conservation officer, your private lands biologist, your fisheries biologist. All those individuals can be found right there at the Department of Fish and Wildlife website at fw.ky.gov. There's a page where drop down, there's either a map, or you can drop down by your county and see all of your contacts.
Yes.
Even your conservation educator that's assigned to your county.
Yeah.
You can find all that information right there. Very useful. Next question, Dan. How many acres do you need? Oh, we already just did that. Andy, any CWD found in the surveillance zone last year? We talked a little bit about this.
Yep.
But-
The answer is no. Yeah. So tested about 4,700 samples that we certainly couldn't have done it without our hunters. We had over a 95% compliance rate.
Yeah.
So that blew us away. Looking back on it, everybody was happy to come see our folks at the check stations, and I think honestly, everybody had a pretty good time down there.
Yeah,
I enjoyed talking to the different hunters down there. So, but either way, no detections whatsoever from that zone or across the state.
Interesting enough, so people confuse sick deer for sick deer, regardless of what the issue is and why it's sick. The other disease, not CWD, but HD.
Yep.
We had some hot spots this year.
We
right?
did, kind of around the Louisville area.
Yep.
Just here very recently. That should be winding down as cold as it felt this morning. Once that first frost hits, it kills the midges that move that around. So, and that's certainly with HD, also kind of known as blue tongue, different but the same. Those deer get that and are dead in a few days.
Yeah.
CWD differs because they can have that for 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
So with CWD, you're not necessarily seeing sick deer, and we wouldn't expect to see any where we're at here in Kentucky. We want to find it early. We're likely, if we find it, we're going to find it in a perfectly healthy looking deer. So that's really why we did the mandatory check stations last year and had to get those samples.
Yeah.
Because they're not just sticking out there, we're running around picking up sick deer. So.
Last year we went down and went to a check station and took a deer to a check station, and it was much quicker, and it was actually fun and educational.
Yeah.
But if you're in an area and you want to get your deer checked and you're not near a check station, there's other options to get that done as well, because you're talking about a most likely CWD deer if you were to take a CWD deer, not in Kentucky because there's not any there that we know of so far, but if you were to take a CWD deer, you may not visibly know that it has that. You're saying that it's going to look perfectly healthy. If you want to get that tested, there's a process for that as well, right?
There is. We've got a great system. So it's in the hunting guide. We've got a list of freezer locations.
Okay.
These are mainly at sporting goods stores, county ag extension offices. You'll see a little chest freezer. We've got them wrapped, with a decal on them. You'll know what it is. We've got everything you need right there to remove the head of the deer. So if it's a doe, just remove the head of the deer. We'll have bags. We'll have tags to fill out. You pull off the end of the tag and leave with that. 4 to 6 weeks, you should be able to look up your results of that test. We encourage people to use that. It's there for the taking. They're pretty well evenly distributed across the state. We don't have them everywhere. It's a program that we're growing. But it's relatively easy. We've got one right out front of our office here in Frankfort.
So, and the process is really easy to check that too. You go on the website, there's a box where you go in there, you put your number in, bam, it tells you, it gives you all your information and tells you that the deer did not have CWD. Well, that's all I've ever seen. I've only checked one. And
luckily that's all it's ever showed.
But so that it's a pretty easy process if you want to get that done.
It is.
All right. I'll tell you what, I have enjoyed these last couple mornings getting up. I need to put a sweatshirt on to go outside. It's been great. What's your favorite type of hunting? What do you like to do the most?
And I'm a waterfowl hunter. Grew up in West Kentucky. That's kind of in my blood. But probably my favorite weekend of the year is the early muzzleloader season.
Okay.
I don't like being cold. The weather's usually nice. The deer are usually moving, and it's kind of really for me kind of the first time probably in the tree stand in a typical fall.
Jacob, what's your favorite type of hunting?
I like coupling bird hunting, quail, grouse. Got a good bird dog I like to hunt behind. It's just an enjoyable time to get out and see Kentucky. I mean, it's a good opportunity all the way across the state. Woodcock, quail, grouse. I mean, you can literally go from east to west and have something to hunt.
Yeah.
And check out some of our WMAs. I mean, there's some good opportunities on those WMAs for all those.
It's interesting. So Rufus, what if you got one more day to hunt? What's that? What are you going to hunt?
Probably spring turkey.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoy spring turkey quite a bit. And then go down south every year and hog hunt down in Alabama. I enjoy that quite a bit too.
Yeah,
That's a lot of fun.
That's one of the beautiful things about here in Kentucky is because I love the early archery deer season, but right behind that is hunting behind a pack of beagles, rabbit hunting. I mean, those two things are probably my favorite. But if you ask 20 different sportsmen and women in the state of Kentucky what's their favorite hunting activity, you might very well get 10 or 15 different answers. People would immediately think, oh, well, it's going to be deer hunting. But waterfowl, turkey hunting, super popular, some of the small game hunting, the different ways that you can deer hunt here in the state of Kentucky, and now bear and elk hunting is becoming more and more popular. There really are a lot of opportunities, which just makes me smile and almost giddy to know that that time of year is here now. We get to experience all that for the next 3 or 4 months. So if you're a person that you really say, hey, I'm a deer hunter and I deer hunt that opening weekend at deer camp every single year, if you love it and you really enjoy it, look for other opportunities because the state of Kentucky offers so many different opportunities throughout the year, throughout the fall, and even, we're talking about spring turkey hunting. So there's all kinds of opportunities out there. So that's interesting because no one said the same thing here. Of course, it's a small sample size, but I always ask people what's your favorite, and you never know. It runs the gamut: waterfowl to turkey to deer to who knows what. So I hear people say frog gigging. That's their favorite thing in the world to do. So it's really cool. All right, next question is from Gabriel. He wants to know how long an elk is pregnant.
How long an elk is pregnant?
How long is an elk from conception to birth? How long is that?
Yeah, so the peak of our rut is about September 17th. So we do some studies, can measure, fetuses from our January hunt. I'm gonna have to remember back to my dissertation defense. I think it's somewhere between 240 and 260 days.
Okay.
So most of our elk calves, we sort of have a peak birth date right about June 1.
Okay.
So
Gabriel could be one of your counterparts testing your intelligence. He may have stumped you just by about 10 days. It's 10 days, give or take. We're there. Next question is from Griff, who wants to know what determines the change in deer zones for a county. That's a good question because there's quite a few factors that go into that. Who wants to talk about what it takes to change a zone?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So we get those questions pretty frequently. So we've got sort of a foundational deer model that predicts the number of deer per square mile by county, but that's just one of the tools that we use. And so, we're here to talk to the hunters, through our commission, and sort of strike a balance between what we're seeing out there and what our model's saying. We're taking in everything from, road kills in that county, the crop depredation permits that we may or may not be issuing for that county for agriculture damage, and just more or less kind of coming to a compromise and putting that in a zone. With our zone system, really, if you're a 2 or a 3, that's kind of the sweet spot. That's where we want it. Just as a very generalized description, Zone 1s have too many deer, and in Zone 4 we would like to raise that population. So really, if you're in a 2 or a 3, you're about there, and there's not a lot of benefit from bouncing from a 2 to a 3. So that's kind of how we've got them boxed in. But it's certainly something. Talk to your commissioner, talk to us, raise whatever concern it might be, and we'll compare that to what we're seeing.
It's interesting. I probably get once a week get a phone call from someone throughout the state of Kentucky that wants to bring up some thought or idea they're having on a rule or regulation change. And a lot of times, the really good rules or regulations are good thoughts, right? But they're wanting someone to bounce this off of, and I got zero input.
Yeah.
But for a person who really wants to kind of make their suggestion or their thoughts or what they're seeing in the field known to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, there is a method in place and a way to do that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so our the beauty of the system, our commission system that we've got set up, you've got a representative. So all that's on our website. You can see what commission district you're in, see who represents you, and basically have a direct line to input suggestions. I myself personally love hearing from our hunters. That's a big benefit of this job. So, if there's something that you don't agree with, or even better, something you do agree with that we're doing, call us.
Yeah.
Happy to talk with you.
But interesting enough, if a person calls you and makes a suggestion that you go, wow, That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
You can't just go and make that change.
No.
There's a process. There's a process
Correct.
requires multiple commissioners getting input, public input. They'll have a time for a meeting for other people to put additional thoughts and ideas out there on the table, get the biological side aspect into it, and then it has to be voted on and passed. And it's usually at least a year out, right?
At least, yeah.
At least a year out, and sometimes even longer than that. So if you do have a thought or a suggestion, and it's a good idea, and you contact your representative or the Department of Fish and Wildlife, it takes a little bit of time.
It does. Yeah, we can't change anything overnight, which is good.
Yeah, and that's
So,
good because we don't
yep.
want the rules and regulations changing every single time you turn your head. No one would know any of the rules and regulations.
Right.
So, but yeah, there is a process in place to make your thoughts or ideas known, and we appreciate that input. All right, next question from Logan. What are some of the hidden gems or overlooked public hunting areas in the state of Kentucky? Boy, this is a good question. So, Kentucky is kind of a big place, and it depends on what you're hunting for, right?
Yeah.
But tell me some, we'll go through the room and talk about some opportunities that they, people will live either close to you or some areas that people go to and hunt with success, and you go, man, it's just not that pressured either. What would you say?
I'm going to say right off the bat, and it's something, our small game biologist may kill me because he took a nice turkey out there this spring, but some of our properties in the east that are traditionally our elk properties, that are our strip mine properties that we've got an agreement for public access, are underutilized for some of the less popular seasons, and even for deer and turkey season. So, what comes to my mind: Boone Forest Lands, WMA, Elk Forest, WMA, and Asher Hunter Access Area.
Okay.
There's parts of Bell and Leslie County with almost 150,000 acres, and I'll throw a tie at WMA in there as well. Acres that you can't even think about hunting in an entire season. And we'll be down there working October, November, and not see anybody.
Nobody.
All day.
Yeah.
That's pretty common. Those places are great. You can camp. You can really feel like you're kind of having a backcountry adventure hunt.
Oh yeah.
Trying not to run into a bear, and see some elk. So that's my tip.
There you go. That's a great tip too. I mean, if you want to start a new family tradition or get some friends together and start a deer camp, and you don't really have a good spot to go to,
Yep.
here you go.
Absolutely.
You can't get any more wild wilderness, and the opportunity to take a big deer down there or a big turkey. Some of the numbers, a lot of them are zone 3 and 4 areas, but man, some of the biggest deer I've seen in the state of Kentucky have come from eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
There are some really, really big deer down there. The numbers aren't as big, but there's some big deer there.
Yep.
Where's your secret hunting hole? Tell us your secret hunting spot.
I don't know if I want to do that, Chad. It's and this is something that I'd hate to stay on that, but I'm actually planning a trip for myself. I told you I like hunting upland game birds. I've flushed and shot at quail, grouse, woodcock, rabbit all in one day on these places that John was talking about. They are wonderful areas to go and take part in. And it's big country. You have wide room to run, especially turkey hunting, running and gunning. I mean, they're really good pieces of property. And all of our other, are high priority areas that the department just identified right now. All those are wonderful areas with good management getting done on them. So I really hate to pick out one of them and say, this is a gem. They're all gems. And in certain parts of the year, certain species are underhunted on some of them. And then do keep in mind they are public areas. So when you go there, just be ready for that.
Rufus, you have a place that you go and check hunters, and you pull in and you go, man, I can't believe there's not people here today. This is such a good spot.
Probably the two in the region that I work in, the area I work in the most is Miller Welch, Central Kentucky, WMA there in Madison, and then Veterans in Scott County.
Okay.
And those are pretty well utilized. There's usually always somebody there doing something on one of those WMAs, whether it's taking a walk or hunting or shooting, using the range like at the Miller Welch WMA, or they have a lot of the trap. That one's kind of a little bit different WMA than most of the rest of ours, but they've got the trap ranges and all that stuff down there. So they're.
Well, I'll tell you, the one
busy.
I would throw out there, and it's funny because I got a phone call last week about how come we haven't been out and showcased all the hunting opportunities that exist on Fort Knox. Now you're talking about a big piece of property. Now, they have their own biologists. Well, we don't do a lot as an agency on Fort Knox, but they have biologists that do some work out there. And apparently there are an extensive amount of hunting opportunities on Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I don't know how many thousands of acres or 100,000 acres that is. It's massive, and we all know about the quota hunt, but there are other hunting opportunities out there outside of the normal firearm deer season. So that's something you might want to look into too, as well. If you're looking for a place to go and hunt, that may be an opportunity. So, all right, next question here. Let's see here. All right, Earl Lowe, moving forward, is it possible to have bear regulations in place earlier in the year so they can have more time to plan?
I would love that. That's our goal every year, and I thought that we were well ahead of the curve last year to get them. You know, my goal every year is to get them in the guide. We've changed them often because we're adapting to a growing population. We're adapting to a group of hunters that are learning and kind of maybe want different things as we go along. So that's always the goal, is to get it in the guide. Unfortunately, with kind of coming off the tail end of COVID, everything has been slowed down. You know, the various hoops that reg's got to jump through have gotten a little bit tighter here lately.
We've got a lot of opportunities here in Kentucky, and fall is just getting started. We've got a lot of hunting seasons ahead. I've got a lot of things that I'm looking forward to. I know you guys, not only do you work for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, but you participate in the outdoors as well. You just talked about coming back from Colorado. What's a favorite part of your job? You get to do a lot of cool things with bears. Now, we've done shows with you. We've been out holding bear cubs, and we've went out and caught elk. And we've done a lot of cool things. What's your favorite part of your job?
Man, strangely enough, my favorite part is talking with our elk hunters over the summer as they prepare for the hunt.
Oh yeah.
And with Joe and I going to Colorado, we were kind of all doing the same thing. I was just preparing for a hunt somewhere different.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun, and when they're successful, there's nothing better than that.
Oh yeah.
So,
Jacob, what's your favorite part of your job?
The interaction with landowners, having the ability to talk to them and show them what the potential of their property is, and then watching them follow through with that, and to talk to them about the results they've seen from that, and when they go out. So we're talking about the hunting aspect of this, but habitat management's 365 days a year. Providing what the wildlife needs for the whole year, and then when you do get to go hunt, the enjoyment of taking a deep breath and enjoying your scenery and hopefully harvesting because you have put that habitat on the ground. So the interaction with the landowners is my favorite part of the job.
Yeah. Rufus, what's your favorite part about being a conservation officer?
I would probably say that the interaction with the sportsmen and the landowners as well. I enjoy getting out there, driving out on patrol or whatever, and see a landowner and just pull over and talk and make conversation, see how things are going. Sometimes that leads into information or tips that, hey, somebody was through here the other night shining a light, or something like that. But building those relationships is one of the things I enjoy. And then and it's not just as a conservation officer. It takes the whole department to do that. But it's just the thought of knowing that we're giving back to the resource, and that we're hopefully making it better when we're gone than it was when we came here. I grew up with my dad. I used to always say that he had time to take me hunting or fishing, but now that I'm older, he made time. He didn't have the time, he made the time. So, and I can remember we saw very few deer back when I was growing up in the 80s and stuff like that, and what it is now. So, and it took the officers before me, the biologists before me, and all that to get it to where it is today. So just knowing that we can make that difference to leave for the next generation coming up better than what we even had it.
Yeah. For me, I think it's, I think I've been in every county in the state of Kentucky at some point in time, and seeing the different focus and the different opportunities that exist, and how passionate people that are outdoors. I mean, you're talking about a passionate group. These people, they count the days down to whatever opportunity that they want to participate in. They count the days down and mark them off the calendar. And so it's very interesting in a world that we live in today where it's so tech driven and everybody wants to be on their cell phone or on their computer screen. The favorite part of every one of our jobs was the interaction with other people who also like to do those type of things. And I'll tell you what, if that means something to you, think about getting those kids off of those computers and getting them off those phones and getting them outdoors. It's a great opportunity to experience a lifestyle that may mean a lot to them for years and years and years in the future, because The favorite part of all of our jobs, no one said it was filling out an expense report or, that's the unfortunate things that have to be done. It really is a unique opportunity to communicate with people who like some of the same things that we like. And, or maybe they're calling us to tell us they don't like one of the things we do. You still kind of like hearing the other people's aspects and their thoughts on it. So very, very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed tonight's show, and hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. The opportunities this fall are out there. We got the youth season right around the corner. Small game hunting is probably one of the best ways to get out and get some exercise and see the entire Commonwealth here in the state of Kentucky. So make sure that you get outside and make time for the kids, the next generation, and just enjoy getting out and seeing the wildlife. I want to thank all you guys for joining us today. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, hunting and fishing on private property is a privilege. Always ask permission and thank the landowner. Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Miles, and I hope to see you in the woods or on the water.